There's a conversation happening right now among football fans planning their summer, and it's not the conversation anyone expected to be having 19 days before the biggest World Cup in history kicks off. It goes something like this. You have a ticket, you have money saved, you've waited years for this, and then you sit down and ask yourself, which part of this tournament do I actually want to be at? And more, the answer coming back is the same. Mexico, Canada. Not because the football in those cities is more important. The knockout rounds and the final are all in the United States, and nobody is pretending otherwise. But for the group stage, for the weeks when the tournament is alive with possibility, when the atmosphere is at its most electric, when fans from every corner of the world are sharing streets and stadiums and a collective feeling that only the World Cup produces, Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Toronto, and Vancouver are becoming the places where people most want to be. That's a remarkable thing, and it deserves a proper explanation, because it tells you something important about what the 2026 World Cup actually is, not on paper, but in practice. Not as FIFA describes it, but as the fans who are living and breathing this tournament right now are experiencing it. Let's start with Mexico, because Mexico's relationship with this tournament is unlike anything the other two host nations can claim. Mexico has hosted the World Cup before, 1970 and 1986, two of the most beloved editions in the tournament's history. The hand of God, the goal of the century, the night Maradona destroyed England in the Azteca. These are not just Mexican memories, they are football memories that belong to everyone who loves the game. And now, in 2026, Mexico is hosting again. Not the whole thing, 13 matches spread across 3 cities, but 13 matches played in front of Mexican crowds in Mexican stadiums, with Mexican football culture wrapped around every moment. The Estadio Guadalajara, known officially as Akron Stadium for this tournament, is one of the most intimate and intense football atmospheres in the world. Chivas de Guadalajara play there. The noise inside it during a local derby is something that makes the air vibrate. When that stadium hosts Uruguay against Spain in the group stage, the experience of being there will be something supporters carry for the rest of their lives. Mexico City's Estadio Azteca is a venue that doesn't need an introduction to anyone who has watched football for more than a decade. 100,000 people have stood inside it for a World Cup final. The weight of history in that building is unlike anything in the sport. It is hosting the opening match of the entire tournament on June 11th, which tells you exactly how FIFA views Mexico's significance to the spectacle, not as a satellite, as a centerpiece. And then there's Monterrey's BBVA Stadium, the steel giant as it's known locally, with the Cerro de la Silla mountain visible from the stands behind the goal. That image alone, a World Cup match being played against a backdrop of Mexican mountains, captures something about what makes football beautiful that no amount of corporate branding can manufacture. Here's the practical reality that's driving fans toward these 3 cities. Mexico has the most flexible entry rules of all 3 host nations. Many nationalities can enter visa-free. Fans who hold a valid Schengen visa, a U.S. visa, a U.K. visa, a Canadian visa, or a Japanese visa can enter Mexico without a separate Mexican visa at all. For supporters from countries facing complicated access to the United States, Mexico isn't a fallback, it's an open door. Iranian fans who can't enter the U.S. can attend matches in Mexico. Haitian fans in the same situation can do the same. Supporters from across the African continent and the Middle East who face varying degrees of difficulty with U.S. visa applications can reach Mexico with considerably less friction. And the football on offer in those 3 Mexican cities is not second tier. South Africa against South Korea in Monterrey, Japan against Tunisia in the same city, Colombia, Tunisia, Morocco, genuinely compelling group stage football in venues where football has been celebrated for generations.
Across the border, on the other side of this three-country arrangement, Canada is offering something completely different, something that might actually be the most distinctive feature of the entire tournament.
Toronto has been described, accurately, as the most genuinely multicultural sports city on Earth. The World Cup is coming to a place where nearly every nation competing in it already has a significant community living within a short distance of the stadium. When Italy or Portugal plays at BMO Field, there will be Italian Canadians and Portuguese Canadians who have been waiting for this their entire lives, not just as football fans, but as people for whom this match is personal in a way that goes beyond sport. When Bosnia and Herzegovina play Canada in the opening match on June 12th, the first men's World Cup match ever played on Canadian soil, the Bosnian diaspora in Toronto, one of the largest outside the Balkans, will be in those stands. That's not atmosphere in the manufactured sense, that's the real thing. Sharp magazine put it beautifully earlier this year. They said Canada is hosting the world, but the world is already living in Canada, and it will be celebrating its roots. Every visiting team will find a home crowd waiting for them in matching jerseys. Canada is turning its stadiums into the most diverse, high-stakes venues in tournament history, not because of any planning or design, but because of who Canada already is. Vancouver adds another dimension entirely. BC Place sits in the heart of downtown Vancouver with a retractable roof, one of only a handful of enclosed World Cup venues in this tournament, which becomes significant in a summer where scientists have been warning about dangerous heat conditions in open stadiums across the U.S. The mountain backdrop visible from the stadium is genuinely unlike anything else on the 16-venue list. Vancouver's large communities from Latin America, Asia, and Europe mean that a group stage match there will draw multilingual, multinational fan energy of a kind that rarely exists in the same stadium at the same time. 7 matches are set for BC Place, 5 in the group stage, then a round of 32 and a round of 16 knockout match, which means Vancouver will be hosting World Cup football deep into the tournament, past the point where only the best teams are still standing. Toronto's 6 matches include Canada's opening fixture against Bosnia, which is already one of the most anticipated matches of the group stage. It's a nation playing its first men's World Cup match at home. That moment, the Canadian national anthem, the Canadian fans, the Bosnian diaspora in the stands facing their compatriots, is the kind of football story that doesn't need any embellishment. The Canada of 2026 is not the Canada of 1986, when the country qualified for its only previous World Cup by default and lost all 3 group stage matches without scoring a goal. Alphonso Davies, the Bayern Munich left-back, is one of the most dynamic players in world football. Jonathan David has been among the most clinical strikers in European football this season. Tajon Buchanan, Cyle Larin, Liam Miller, this is a squad with genuine quality and a genuine belief. They know their football has arrived at a level the country has never experienced before, and they're playing their opening match at home, in front of their own people, in a stadium that will be louder than any football match Canada has ever hosted. What all of this adds up to is something that FIFA didn't entirely plan for, but that the structure of this tournament has made possible. The 3-country format, which was sold primarily as a commercial and logistical decision when the bid was awarded, has created something more interesting. It's created 3 distinct World Cup experiences running simultaneously. The American experience, which is the largest and most commercially developed, the Mexican experience, which carries the deepest football history and the most open access, and the Canadian experience, which offers something genuinely new, the World Cup held in a country that is already, in a real sense, the world. For fans who can travel freely to all 3, the question becomes which experience they want. For fans whose access to the United States is complicated by visa requirements, travel bans, or cost, the Mexican and Canadian options aren't consolation prizes. They're the places where the football will feel most alive. There's a historical parallel worth considering for anyone who has watched enough World Cups to remember the 2002 tournament in Japan and South Korea.
That was the first co-hosted World Cup in history, and the doubts beforehand were significant. 2 countries, 1 tournament, a shared structure that nobody had tried before. What it produced was one of the most memorable and atmospheric editions the sport has ever seen. South Korea reaching the semifinals in front of their own people remains one of the great sporting stories of the modern era. Japan delivering perfect hosting in city after city surprised even the most optimistic observers. 2026 is asking something similar of its 3 nations. Different cities, different cultures, different relationships with the game, but all of it in service of a single tournament. And what's emerging 19 days out is a picture in which Canada and Mexico are poised to deliver their portions of this World Cup with a warmth and a football identity that is genuinely their own. The knockout rounds will still be in the United States. The final will be at MetLife Stadium on July 19th. The biggest single moments of the tournament will unfold on American soil, as they were always going to. But the group stage, the part where most fans experience the World Cup, the part where the tournament finds its character and its stories, that part belongs to all 3 countries equally. And right now, Canada and Mexico are ready to make their portion of it unforgettable. Does this change how you're thinking about the tournament? If you had the freedom to be anywhere in North America for the group stage, where would you choose? Mexico City on opening day with the Azteca packed to the last seat? Toronto on June 12th for Canada's first ever home World Cup match? Or Vancouver with the mountains behind the stadium and the city's extraordinary diversity filling the stands? Leave your answer in the comments. I'd genuinely like to know. These are the details that make a World Cup real, not the fixtures on paper, but the places you choose to be when the whistle blows. If this gave you something to look forward to in what has sometimes felt like a complicated build-up to this tournament, a like helps more than you might expect. Subscribe if you want to stay close to this story all the way through to July 19th. 19 days, 3 countries, 1 tournament, and football never stays quiet for long. See you in the next one.